All right, she lost an election, and now she's projecting. Hilary Clinton went on The View this week, which immediately raises a serious question. What's the weight capacity for that stage? But you'll never guess what she talked about. Her love of gardening, the things she does to stay healthy, how much she adores catching and cooking stray kittens. Nah, it was Donald Trump, as expected. But it's like I always tell Taylor Swift, girl, you gotta move on. Seriously, Trump doesn't just live in Hillary's brain. He's built a 500-unit condo with in-unit laundry and a rooftop lounge.
When Greg Gutfeld locks in, even the biggest names crumble, and Hilary Clinton is no exception. With cutting humor and blunt truth, he rips away the polished stage act to reveal the real Hillary behind the rehearsed smiles and practice lines. From email fiascos to international missteps, nothing escapes as he tears through her record with sarcasm and precision. This isn't casual critique, it's a full-blown comedic takedown.
Half of registered voters said any Republican would be better than President Biden, prompting one woman to legally change her name to N.E. Republican. In Washington, D.C., the giant grocery chain has announced a ban on large bags. Great, now where will I shop, complains one large bag.
Picture this, you roll out of bed, stretch, grab your overpriced Starbucks latte, and suddenly think, what the world really needs is more life lessons from Hilary Clinton. Because nothing says unity like a politician who spent more time dodging scandals than a raccoon sprinting through a garbage-strewn alley.
Hilary Clinton argues Joe should be, quote, direct and forceful, end quote, against Trump in the CNN debate. Yeah, direct and forceful, just like the noose I put around Epstein's neck. If I did it.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit subscribe. Right on cue, Greg Gutfeld grabbed the wrecking ball, and this wasn't just demolition, it was a Category 5 roast, packed with verbal fire, public spectacle, and the grace of a wrecking ball crashing through fine china. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've still got a Clinton to flambe.
Warning signals that you were gonna lose? Well, too bad you didn't bother to visit the states you ended up losing, you potato-shaped wine bag. But would he even be worse now?
I think that he'd be even worse now. Yeah. Because he was somewhat restrained, believe it or not, in the first term by people who he hired because he thought they would go along with him, and they stood.
If political comebacks were a sport, Hillary would be the Michael Jordan of airballs. Every election cycle, like a recycled TV reboot, she reappears from the mist, new pantsuit on, freshly polished sense of moral superiority in tow. It would almost feel poetic if the poetry were scribbled in Comic Sans by a committee of consultants who all flunked Ethics 101.
And, you know, they're going to try to ignore him for as long as they can because they're deathly afraid of him. And they're going to do to him what they did to me in the Democratic primary of 2020, which is pretend you don't exist. And then if you people start noticing you, then they will try to smear and cancel and destroy him at all costs.
I remember what Hillary did to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and she's still standing.
Baseless smears that repeated over and over and over again by the propaganda media until people actually start to believe it, and it starts causing some real damage.
But on the bright side,
let's take a little trip down memory lane. Back to the days when email servers hid in basements. Benghazi was just another spot on the map, and delete wasn't just a button, it was a lifestyle. After all, nothing builds public trust quite like wiping 30,000 emails faster than a teenager hiding text messages from their mom.
asking Hillary what will happen if Trump is reelected, which is odd because Hillary's an expert on not getting elected. I wonder, does she think it would end our country as we know it?
I think it would be the end of our country as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. You know, I hated losing, and I especially hated losing to him because I had seen so many warning signals during the campaign.
Greg didn't hold back. His eyes lit up with mischief, like tossing Mentos into a Diet Coke. Only this time, the Diet Coke was Hillary's legacy, and the Mentos were truth bombs coated in sarcasm. He didn't even blink. With ease, he shredded decades of polished Clinton PR like ripping open a bag of chips. Flavor, sour cream, with a side of electoral delusion.
This is why lefties always get all the commencement addresses, and they love to spout their opinions on award shows because they know there's no journalist there that will ask them a question. And the reason why, and he's the perfect example, none of their opinions are actually real. They are all assigned.
Let's rewind to 2016, the plot twist that ruined brunch plans across America. Hillary was destined to win. That was the script. Hollywood, the media, even the ghost of FDR had their congratulatory tweets ready, but the voters, in a flash of unpredictability, replied, yeah, no. And how did Hillary handle it? With grace? Not exactly. She spent the next 5 years writing books, hitting the speaking circuit, and pointing fingers at everyone from Macedonian meme makers to James Comey. One day it was sexism, the next it was Russia, then misogynistic Wi-Fi routers, gluten intolerance, and maybe even gravity itself. It was less concession speech, more political remix of It Wasn't Me, except instead of Shaggy, it was a rotating cast of scapegoats. Meanwhile, Gutfeld wasn't pulling punches. He tore in like a kid at Chuck E. Cheese with unlimited tokens. Every failed talking point, every recycled excuse, every lukewarm hot take from Hillary's post-election tour got roasted, dissected, and tossed onto the compost heap of bad politics. Because nothing says diplomatic success quite like turning a nation into a Mad Max sequel.
It's been in the Democratic Party's pocket since Hillary stopped having sex.
That's like decades.
Yeah. Losing the union endorsement is like P. Diddy running out of baby oil. There's a whole lot of friction ahead. When Teamsters polled their members about the Dems' new candidate, Cackle's McKnee pads.
And then there's the Clinton Foundation, that shining monument to, what exactly? Charity? Transparency? Or just a family business dressed up in nonprofit branding, running with the efficiency of a DMV engulfed in flames? Millions poured in, yet the world stayed suspiciously the same. Coincidence? Doubtful. Greg called it out with the joy of a kid tearing open a present labeled hypocrisy. He reminded everyone that Hillary's Wall Street speeches weren't soaring leadership moments. They were six-figure bedtime stories for billionaires. Less bold stateswoman, more customer service rep reading from a diamond-studded teleprompter, and the audacity, perfectly polished. Greg stripped away the carefully crafted narrative layer by layer, revealing an onion of ambition, ego, and ironic detachment. And yes, there were tears, but only from the crowd doubled over in laughter.
The alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor that the unclassified Durham report refers to as Foreign Policy Advisor 1. And this woman, look how happy she is. She's like, I got away with everything. I nailed it. And then Obama made me the liaison to NATO. I mean, not Obama, Biden. Like I continue to get employed by these people because all I do is sit around and do the illicit bidding of my Democrat power boss.
And then came Hillary's sudden rebrand as a truth teller. Quite the comedy, considering this is the same person who once claimed to be dead broke while owning more property than a monopoly board. Her bond with truth, about as natural as a vegan at a BBQ, awkward, tense, and riddled with contradictions. Yet somehow, she still positions herself as a beacon of moral clarity. That's like volunteering as the designated driver at a demolition derby. Sounds noble, but you're still in the wrong place. Greg's roast cut with surgical precision. It was clinical, relentless, like watching a History Channel special with punchlines. He reminded us Hillary has starred in more scandals than most soap operas, only with worse acting. Every relatable moment she pushes feels manufactured, stamped with approval from a focus group, and tested on lab rats for authenticity. Drinking beer at a dive bar? Staged. Riding the subway? Staged. Breathing oxygen? Pending confirmation.
This one is wild. This is Hillary Clinton in like 2008, and Hillary Clinton saying some wild MAGA type shit.
Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked, they're gone. If they...
She's a Republican.
If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. you have to pay back taxes, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
You have to wait in line. You have to wait in line. It's
You couldn't believe that.
illusion.
And then came the kicker, the pièce de resistance of Gutfeld's roast. He lobbed a rhetorical Molotov cocktail, mocking Hillary's uncanny talent for sinking anything she endorses. Back a candidate, they lose. Push a policy, it collapses. It's as if the gods of irony put her on retainer. If Hillary endorsed gravity, we'd all be floating by noon. Meanwhile, the Clinton playbook hasn't changed. Deny, deflect, and above all, never ever take responsibility. It's like watching a magician whose only trick is making emails. Accountability and credibility disappear. Is it unfair to blame her for everything? Maybe. Is it entertaining? Absolutely. Because seeing a politician who's been around since dial-up still try to sell herself as the fresh face of change is like watching a VHS tape go to war with TikTok. And don't forget the media chorus cheering her on like a hyper-caffeinated pep squad. Her words, exactly what she meant. The problem, they just never land.
Hillary Clinton, of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was
Greg didn't even break a sweat. He laid out the facts with sarcasm sharp enough to cut deeper than a tax audit. And the best part, Hillary wasn't even there to clap back. She didn't need to be. The roast was cooked to perfection. Even Gordon Ramsay would have signed off. But like every recurring villain in a political sitcom, she'll be back. Probably just in time to drop another memoir titled You Thought I Was Done. Spoiler, she wasn't. The saga drags on because as long as Hillary keeps lurching back into the spotlight with the elegance of a malfunctioning Roomba, there will always be someone like Gutfeld ready to hand her the mic and then set the stage ablaze. And we'll be here, popcorn in hand, watching the slow motion train wreck of ambition colliding with zero self-awareness. Because nothing screams I'm finished with politics like popping up in every news cycle, haunting the media like a political Furby. Then come the endless interviews where her insights land like a Monday morning quarterback with a grudge and an overstuffed thesaurus.
It doesn't mean that Hillary would have been a good choice either. She was a terrible choice. She's a corrupt politician, one of the most unlikable people that's ever run for office. They were trying to get people to be supporting her just because she's a woman. This is going to be her history. Women, ladies, I stand with her. So there's all these women that have this blind allegiance towards this career politician, completely full of shit. She's been full of shit forever.
She strolls in wearing a perfectly staged blazer, drops a few lines laced with passive-aggressive wisdom, and smiles like she just remembered where the skeletons are buried. Figuratively, probably. What makes it worse, what makes it performance art, is the audience nodding along as if she just cured world hunger with a soundbite. She'll say things like, we need to protect democracy, but from her, it lands less like a rallying cry and more like a phishing email dressed up as a TED Talk. It's always the same act, as if democracy somehow failed her, not the other way around. Greg's roast didn't just poke fun, it tore the mask off, tossed it into the Hudson, and then handed out binoculars so everyone could watch it drift away. He dragged out the things polite society pretends to forget, like those donor pay-to-play whispers. And the best part? He did it all with a grin that said, I read the footnotes too. Every single time Clinton's team tried to repackage her as the seasoned voice of wisdom, he burned the label right off.
How dare she? She puts out this tweet, and it's a picture of her, a much younger Hillary, and the caption on the hat reads, but her emails. And she writes in her tweet, bringing this back in light of recent news. Get a limited edition But Her Emails hat and support Onward Together groups working to strengthen our democracy. The nerve of this woman to have committed federal crimes and to have gotten off because James Comey didn't have the spine to bring it.
Greg reminded America that Hillary's less Jedi Master and more corporate HR manager with a grudge and a Gmail problem, and the audience devoured it. Why? Because finally, someone said aloud what most only mutter at Thanksgiving dinner. Hillary's political career has become one long PowerPoint of contradictions. Champion of women, unless the accusations hit too close to her circle. Defender of truth, unless it's under subpoena. Fighter for the people, sure, as long as those people are vetted donors with fast Wi-Fi. But here's the real irony. After decades of branding, rebranding, spin, and carefully staged silence, she still missed the one thing that might have salvaged her image. Genuine humility. That's why Greg's roast hit so hard. It was savage, yes, but effective because it shoved a mirror in front of her that she spent years dodging. And when the smoke cleared, when the last punchline landed, and the laughter finally died down, only the truth was left. Not the polished, consultant-approved truth, but the raw, unfiltered reality. Maybe Hillary Clinton isn't the misunderstood savior of democracy she imagines herself to be. Maybe she's just the loudest voice in the room, one that can't handle a hit. Because in the theater of politics, Hillary doesn't just spill the tea, she is the tea. Bitter, oversteeped, and impossible to ignore. And trust us, this is only the beginning.
She must be working for Trump. Seriously, that is so bad, it could turn Chelsea Clinton into a never Hillary. And sorry, Lena, the gender card has been so played out, it's falling on deaf, pierced ears. Look, if you already hate Hillary, this new stuff isn't going to change a thing. And if you already hate Trump, this isn't going to make you love him. Battle lines are drawn. Nothing sticks. But it seems like the truth is now the bull in Hillary's china shop. Remember, Nixon was pretty cocky, too, up until he wasn't. Events are now dictating the news, not the other way around. So even the edgiest celebrity and a sympathetic...
Because in the theater of politics, Hillary doesn't just spill the tea. She is the tea. Bitter, oversteeped, and impossible to ignore. She's the political sequel nobody asked for, but the one America can't escape. A ghost haunting the headlines, rattling chains of past scandals, while insisting she's the voice of the future. Every time she resurfaces, the nation collectively sighs, yet watches anyway, because the spectacle is too wild to turn away from. Greg's roast proved one undeniable truth. Hillary's story is not finished. It isn't even close. It's a saga stuck on repeat, a cycle of reinvention, contradiction, and staged comebacks that feel less like fresh beginnings and more like reruns of a show that should have been canceled seasons ago. Each rebrand is another costume change in the same tired play, and each comeback is another reminder that humility never made it onto her script. And that's where Greg struck hardest. He didn't just make jokes. He held up the mirror she spent decades avoiding. He tore apart the branding, shredded the talking points, and burned through the narrative until nothing was left but raw reality. Hillary Clinton isn't the misunderstood savior of democracy she paints herself to be. She's the loudest actor on a stage built on contradictions. A performance that America has seen too many times with worse reviews each season. So here we are, popcorn in hand, front row for the political circus, watching a figure who refuses to exit, who insists on being the star even when the spotlight has moved on. And as long as she keeps stepping back into the ring, there will always be voices like Greg Gutfeld, ready to roast, ready to reveal, and ready to remind us that sometimes the most powerful truth comes dressed as comedy. This isn't the grand finale. No, this is just another act in a never-ending production. A drama laced with irony, ambition, and a stunning lack of self-awareness. A saga America never auditioned for, yet can't stop watching. Because when it comes to Hillary Clinton, the scandals don't fade, the comebacks never end, and the roast, well, the roast practically writes itself.